Hello everybody and welcome back to another video. If you don't know who I am, my name is Anya and I am a fantasy romance writer. And today I'll be doing a little Q&A for you guys. I'm very excited because I've never done one before. I asked you guys over on my Instagram if you had any burning questions for me coming back to YouTube, and I will be answering a few today. So we will get stuck into the questions. And also too, if you have any other questions about me, about my faith or writing or books or whatever the case may be, leave them in the comments below and I'll maybe do another Q&A video very soon. So let's get started with the first question. What would be a dream come true for you as an author? Oh dear. I actually did an Instagram post about this, actually fairly recent, and one of my like a little stupid silly dreams would be to go on the Graham Norton show. I know that's like really impossible for a writer and an author, but that would be a dream of mine. Go on that red sofa and just to be, I think just to like talk about my books and to talk about them with other people and to have a laugh and to have a drink and just to be utterly either teased by Graham or just or to make jokes about it or anything like that. That would be one of my wee silly dreams. And also too, I think the main one would be to see a book on the shelf, either in my local Waterstones would be the main place where I would love to see one of my books, especially going into Belfast and going into the Waterstones and seeing my name on the shelf. That would be a dream for sure. The next question that I have is, how did you decide on what genre to write? That's a very good question. I had a really bad reading slump for many years. I barely read like at all, and I talked about it in one of my previous videos with coming back to YouTube, where it was ACOTAR and the Sarah J Maas books that really got me back into reading. And also too, with the likes of fantasy writing and stuff, it just felt natural to me. A lot of the characters that I had in the past were a bit more like the contemporary sort of romance side, and to me it just didn't fit. And with the first book idea that I had way back when in like 2023, it just felt natural to me to do it in like a fantasy way. I don't know, I always loved fantasy. I used to love Harry Potter growing up, to be honest with you, and I don't so much now, but I love like the whole dystopian thing with like the Hunger Games, and Divergent was one of my favorite books growing up as a teenager, and I loved fantasy. I just didn't have the guts at the time to write it. And I think as I gotten older, the idea with the two characters with the bodyguard romance I'm writing right now, it needed a long form outlet, if that makes sense. So that's kind of how I got into fantasy writing. I just gave it a go one day and the rest is history. I've learned so much throughout this book. I've learned how to write a book. I've learned how to find my voice and to find my prose as a writer, and to learn about structure and story beats is very important. That's kind of how I decided that I wanted to write fantasy, where sure, a lot of messages and a lot of little allegories and like faith teachings, but like under the guise of like a fantasy book, where it's not an explicitly Christian book, but it's a bit more accessible to regular people out in the world. So that's kind of how I decided I wanted to do that. The next question that I have is, what channels do you love? And I'll go off more of like the writing ones that I'm loving at the minute. So obviously, as you will know on this channel, hopefully, that you'll know that I love watching Christy Ann Jones. She is a major inspiration for me actually as a writer, and to see the whole traditional publishing process in such a simple way where she actually explains it and like doesn't make you feel stupid about it. And that's what I really appreciate, because I find a lot of the times in like in the traditional publishing space, it can be a wee bit more complicated, and you really have to learn as you go, and you have to learn all different terminology and everything else. But with her channel, it's just it's relaxing in a way to watch that, and to watch her process, and to watch her doing her own book, obviously too, with her whole like writing vlogs and that Studio Ghibli style. It's very cozy and very comforting. So I love her channel, love her videos. She's fantastic. And I've also been loving this new channel that I've been watching. I believe her name is called Brielle Writes. So she did a video, I'll link it up here, and she did a video where she did Sarah J Maas's writing routine, and I loved it. I really loved watching a different author in the romantasy space doing a writing routine like Sarah. Like, I mean, it's just really interesting to watch, to see how other people do it and how they interpret things. Yeah, it was really interesting, and it's really got me wondering what her own book is about and like what she's working on. So I'm really excited to see other writers in that space like myself. So it's good to know that there's other writers on YouTube. Those are the two channels that I'm loving at the moment. So the next question is, are there any side characters that you love? If so, which one would you love to explore more in a story? I'm so excited about this because, oh my goodness. So in my current work in progress, there are 3 night characters, and I would love to explore each one of them in a book, God willing, one day. So I'm working on one of the nights at the minute. He's kind of like the main guy and the main story arc of the whole universe, cinematic place in my head. That's kind of what I'm working on at the minute, but I would love to explore the two knights, the chosen family of the main knight, if that makes sense. I would love to explore those guys because there was one particular story idea that I had in my head. It was originally going to be for a whole new world, a whole new kingdom, everything, but the way that the story idea fell, with a certain plot points going from literal A to B, it just kind of fell so naturally in the way where character A, for example, finds character B in such a way, but it was that knight who came and saved this other character, and I was like, oh my god, this is wonderful. It was so good because it was just the way that it all just the puzzle pieces formed in a line and formed a story. I was like, oh my god, this is wonderful. So I am very excited to explore, hopefully one day, the other two knights within this particular universe and this world. But there's so much more. Like, I have a whole backlog of ideas in my head and a whole flippin' timeline of books and stories that I would love to explore. But those two side characters, I have a lot more material for them in my head, especially with the other knight who is a bit more grumpy and a bit more closed off. I kind of really want to explore him and how he came to be the way that he is and everything, because originally in my current work in progress, the knight character is a bit more grumpy, but he's a bit more of like a social grumpy, if that makes any sort of sense, where he is talkative, he's witty, he's funny, he's a bit more reserved, but he will have to be social when he needs to be, if that makes any sort of sense. But the actual true grumpy knight that I have is like closed off, doesn't speak, but when he speaks you listen, and he's very intelligent, he's very pragmatic, and he picks up a lot of things that people often miss. I would love to explore those two guys in a bit more detail with their own love story, because you know, when the other brother gets a love story and it's epic and amazing, obviously you have to give it to the other two guys too. So that's what I'm really excited about. The next question is, how did you know you wanted to be an author? It's pretty loaded. So I think for me, during the time when my art business was failing, to be perfectly honest, I went to writing, and it was basically just a whole safe space for me. It just became my sanctuary. And when I really started to learn about the publishing avenues and everything, and it just kind of clicked for me one day where I was like, this is what I want to do. Like, I don't know, there wasn't any specific moment or like a day that I remember where I was like, I want to be an author. It just kind of happened and fell into place so beautifully. Writing and editing and realizing that I want to get better, and realizing that I want to write my own words and my own stories, and actually figuring out that I was actually kind of good at it. Like, I mean, with art and stuff, it always just felt like a last ditch effort, as I have mentioned before in my videos, but with writing, as I said before, there's just like an ease to it, and I just really enjoyed it. I know with the whole traditional publishing pathway, it is very difficult, and I am well prepared for it. I'm well prepared for this project that I'm working on at the minute with Project Beefy, with my current bodyguard fantasy romance. I am more than prepared for that to get absolutely rejected and possibly even shelved, to be perfectly honest. Like, I'm well aware that this could happen, because it is my first book, and you know, you don't often publish your first ever book. I think for me, I'm very much at peace with the idea of like a long marathon of a career to get to where I want to be as a writer. That's kind of where I've ended up, and it's a very non-traditional career path, but I do have a day job outside of here. A little bit of a tangent on why and how I wanted to be an author. It just kind of happened as I wrote, and I realized that yeah, I really enjoy this, and creating these words and creating stories and to plot books and to edit them. Even editing, I actually enjoy a wee bit of editing every now and again, except when I'm making like tons of mistakes where it's like, oh, it's a bit crap. You kind of feel a bit bad about yourself. Yeah, I think even just the whole idea of getting my book out into the world and to share these with people and to share it with readers and to build that readership, God willing, one day, is something that I would love to do. The next question is, what is your favourite thing about the story that may not seem super obvious at first? Oh, I think for me, I have been loving to do a lot of Easter eggs in my work. Even if, it's a big if this book is published, done like a load of Easter eggs in my work where it will hopefully inform future works, and that's kind of been one of my favorite things so far. But also I think in my current work in progress with the bodyguard romance, my favorite thing is the foreshadowing. Like, I mean, obviously it could be improved upon, but I have really worked hard in bringing the foreshadowing into the world building within the creatures of the land and the fae and everything else, bringing that into the story where it will inform the main character's arc and how she feels about herself and how she sees herself in the beginning and how she eventually goes on to develop into the character that she is at the end of the book. I won't spoil it or anything. That's kind of been been my favorite thing so far, to like foreshadow certain things and just to like leave like little sprinkles of detail. That has been one of my favorite things in the story so far. But also too, I think also my favorite thing about the story that may not seem so obvious is the magic system so far, because a lot of the magic system does depend on the main character coming into her power and to survive a particular event where her powers erupt, and it's quite deadly. It's not good for anybody around. You don't want to be around when this is happening, type of thing, to say the very least. That will eventually be a catalyst for everybody else to have these powers and to pass them down the generational line, and that has kind of been one of my favorite things about the story, that there's stakes. Yeah, there's really high stakes to it, and it's not just like a bodyguard romance, but there's actual substance to the story. And yeah, that's kind of what my favorite thing is so far. I hope that answers the question. And the next two questions are kind of like back to back. The first one is, how does writing impact my faith? Wow, I think with writing in particular, it has taught me more than anything to constantly improve upon my work and to get better. And I think that has really informed my faith, where it has been a real refinement process for me. It has really taught me to stick at something and to not give up so easily, and I think that has really informed my faith over the past, I would say, the past year, where I have had every opportunity to give up. I haven't, and thank God, by the grace of God, he hasn't let me give up on writing, and I just haven't been able to let writing go over the past, well, nearly 3 years of actually writing. It's just really taught me a whole lot, like to not give up and to really stick at something, and to let God work in different ways that you wouldn't normally expect. Even with like the fantasy space and stuff, like there's just so much in it, and there's so much potential to have real life stories that speak to people. Even with the likes of, I talked about in my first video with coming back to YouTube, like even with A Court of Silver Flames by Sarah J Maas, like that really impacted me in a way where it helped me in my own healing journey with like mental health and church hurt and everything. I think it's made me realize like there's real power in storytelling. Like, I mean, obviously with the Bible, like, I mean, if God didn't create writers, like, you know, would we have the Bible? Like, would that exist? Like, do you know what I mean? Like, God uses all these different things, and it's really brought a broader view to my faith. Yeah, it's just given me a whole different worldview, healing in a way, where I wouldn't have had in art, where art was a very anxious space for me, and it still is to this day, to be honest. I don't know how, like, it's impacted me in so many ways, but like it's just very hard to put into words that writing has really impacted my faith. Yeah, you just see things a lot differently. Even with looking at like the likes of healing stories, like it's made me a lot more empathetic as a Christian, and also to go deeper with people, to really understand why people the way that they are, and to have an understanding of where God has met people, perhaps in like a really dark place, but obviously bringing them into the light. So that's really how writing has impacted me. It's given me a really broader worldview and more empathy, which I think is really good. And the last question, how does faith impact my writing? That's very good. So I think for me, with writing, especially in my newer manuscript, it's not a typical Christian story, like, at all. It is exploring a lot of themes of redemption and repentance and falling into the crap and being in such a dark place where you do not see a way out. I have been through a lot in the past, well, yeah, for the past 2 years has been some of the hardest stuff that I've been through, and it has really given me a new outlet to process all these things. It's made for some really good stories. Like, I don't know how else to explain it, but especially with the new one, as I was saying, with this character, I don't know how this is going to go. This character has really taken me by the hand and guided me, where it's not this kind of self-insert character where she's just like me and everything else, but she's not like me. She's very extroverted and she's very open and opinionated, and like she is just going through the thing, and we kind of went through the thing together, if that makes sense. So that's kind of where I've ended up with my writing, where my faith has really impacted to the point where I can tell raw stories and I can be real with people. Because I think with a lot of like Christian literature, some parts of it are very dark, and to the point where you're like, oh geez, right, okay. Like, especially with the likes of like A Voice in the Wind series, like it is dark, it is brutal often at times, and you know, that's kind of what I kind of wanted to do with my own books, where you're just real with people and you're not going to mince, I'm not going to mince my words for the sake of, for someone who is like, who has it all together within the church and everything else, like no harm or disrespect to those guys, but like someone who is just really going through it. And that's kind of where I want people to encounter my books where, and hopefully people can feel seen by them and to feel seen by all the topics that I'm going to be speaking about, even with the newer manuscript that I hope to work on very soon as I'm querying my first book. I do want to touch on the likes of Churchyard and touch on being part of an institution and what it is like to break away from that through no fault of their own. There's just so much stuff that I want to speak about, and so much stuff that people have perhaps even kept quiet about, like even with likes of Churchyard and stuff. Like, people are only starting to come out and talk about it now and to expose these things and all the dark stuff that happens within churches sometimes, where it ain't good. It is really not good at all, and I want to kind of be that person where they pick up the books and it's a comfort to them to know that these characters can overcome these things and to come out as a new person and to let go of the hurt and to heal. That's kind of how faith has impacted my writing, where my writing now compared to when I first started is a lot more raw, it's real, it's honest. I know that some people probably won't like it and they probably are like, oh, seriously, like you're really going to talk about that like you're a Christian? But like, no, like I mean, you may as well bring these things out into the light, and that's kind of what I want to do with my book. That's kind of how faith has impacted my writing, where it's real, it's raw, I'm not going to mince my words, and I'm going to talk about the things that people do not want to talk about, but bring these things into the light in order to heal, and not to glorify darkness either, but to bring these things out into the light so that we can heal together through a book. There have been a lot of times throughout my life as a Christian where, yes, I've encountered God through artwork, everything, but I've really encountered God through books. Like, I remember reading Redeeming Love for the first time and just weeping, like absolutely weeping, but so much bravery in talking about the things that the main character in that book went through, and it's like, oh my gosh, like to have again that redeeming love of God and to experience that. Like, I do remember that time so vividly, reading that book after God through so many books have become like such a little safe space for me, just to be inspired by other people's stories and how they have overcome and how they have fought, especially with women in books. Like, I'm reading Rights of the Starling by Devanny Perry, just to have that real arc for like a female character to rise up into her purpose and to realize that there's more to life than just sitting there looking pretty, but fighting for other people, looking good while doing it. Like, that has been something that's been paramount to me, where even as like a single Christian woman in this day and age, where I personally am just going to live my life with or without a husband, and that is kind of what the main character is doing in this book at this minute in time, where yes, she loves her husband, that's wonderful, but like she's like going in her purpose. So that's kind of what I wanted to get across in my books as well, so I hope that answers the question. If you have any other questions, please let me know down in the comments below and I'll hopefully answer them in a future video. Yeah, I mean, I hope that was entertaining. I hope for you guys, and I hope that you enjoyed the video. Please leave me a like and subscribe to my channel for more updates on my own books. Hopefully I will have a better update for you guys very soon. I have my query letter drafted and my synopsis drafted and my query package almost ready to go, so I'll hopefully do a vlog all about that. Yeah, I hope to see you guys in the next video. Be sure to subscribe to my channel for more videos like this, and I will see you guys in the next one. Bye!